Japan is a country located on the Pacific Ring of Fire, an area known for its strong seismic activity, causing the country to regularly face major earthquakes. Throughout its history, Japan has experienced many devastating earthquakes, causing heavy damage to people and property, as well as profound effects on the country's culture and society. One of the first earthquakes recorded in Japanese history was the Nankai Trough earthquake in 1498. This earthquake triggered a massive tsunami that devastated coastal areas of Japan and killed tens of thousands of people. The Nankai earthquake has become a symbol of the terrible power of nature and a reminder of the need to be prepared for similar disasters in the future. Next in history was the largest earthquake of the 20th century in Japan, the Kanto earthquake on September 1, 1923. Measuring 7.9 on the Richter scale, the earthquake shook the capital Tokyo and the Yokohama region. The Kanto earthquake not only caused the collapse of thousands of buildings, but also sparked major fires, turning crowded neighborhoods into seas of fire. An estimated 140,000 people died in the disaster. Many of them burned to death while trying to escape the flames or trapped in the rubble. The Kanto earthquake was not only a human tragedy, but also an economic disaster, as much of the infrastructure of Tokyo and Yokohama was completely destroyed. Japan suffered another devastating earthquake on January 17, 1995, when the Hanshin earthquake, commonly known as the Kobe earthquake, struck. Measuring 6.9 on the Richter scale, the earthquake devastated the city of Kobe and its surrounding areas, killing more than 6,400 people and causing tens of billions of dollars in damage. In particular, the Hanshin earthquake caused the world to rethink the safety of modern construction, as many buildings and bridges in Kobe, which were considered very sturdy, collapsed completely. However, perhaps no earthquake has had the same global impact as the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami of March 11, 2011. Measuring 9.0 on the Richter scale, it was the strongest earthquake ever recorded in Japan. The earthquake triggered a tsunami as high as 40.5 meters, devastating coastal areas in northeastern Japan. More than 15,000 people were killed, thousands more were missing, and millions more were affected by the tsunami's devastation. However, the horror did not stop there when the disaster led to a nuclear accident at the Fukushima Daiichi power plant. Radiation leaks from the plant caused the most serious nuclear crisis since Chernobyl, forcing hundreds of thousands of people to evacuate the contaminated area. The Tohoku earthquake and tsunami was not only a natural disaster, but also a man-made disaster, with lasting consequences that Japan is still facing. In addition to the major earthquakes mentioned above, Japan has also suffered many smaller but equally devastating earthquakes. These earthquakes not only destroy infrastructure and cause property loss, but also leave lasting scars on the Japanese people. Therefore, Japan has become one of the world's leading countries in developing earthquake prevention measures and building earthquake-resistant structures. However, despite these efforts, the Japanese people still live in constant fear of the next earthquake. Every time the ground shakes, even if it is just a small aftershock, the haunting memories of past disasters resurface, reminding them of the powerlessness of humans in the face of the terrible power of nature. Japan, a country with a strong culture and economy, is also a country that always faces harsh challenges from nature. Earthquakes not only test human endurance, but also clearly demonstrate the perseverance and resilience of the Japanese people. The earthquake had a devastating impact on people's lives, severely affecting every aspect of their lives. As the ground shook, thousands of homes and high-rise buildings collapsed, leaving many homeless in an instant. Families were separated, with many loved ones trapped under the rubble or seriously injured. The loss of property and homes was not only a material loss, but also caused deep psychological pain for people. Infrastructure was also severely damaged, making daily life more difficult than ever. Roads were cracked, bridges collapsed, making travel and access to emergency services extremely difficult. Many areas were cut off from electricity, clean water, and other essential services, completely disrupting people's lives. Disaster survivors face harsh living conditions in shelters, with shortages of food, water, and other necessities. Earthquakes also have a serious economic impact, with many production facilities and businesses destroyed, disrupting supply chains and causing widespread unemployment. Many people lose their main source of income, face financial hardship, and do not know where to start again. In particular, large earthquakes also cause secondary disasters such as tsunamis, fires, or radioactive leaks, creating new threats to people's health and safety. In addition, the consequences of earthquakes last long after the disaster has passed. People face fear and anxiety about aftershocks that can occur at any time, causing stress and affecting mental health. Reconstruction efforts after earthquakes take many years to complete, and people have to endure a long and arduous recovery process. Affected communities must learn to survive and recover amid loss and change, and prepare for possible future disasters. Before the earthquake, authorities in Japan are always proactive in disaster prevention, especially earthquakes. They invest heavily in early warning systems, which detect seismic waves as soon as they appear and send warnings within seconds. This system is not only integrated into media such as TV and radio, but also sends warnings directly to people's mobile phones. At the same time, the government organizes regular drills, from schools to offices, to equip people with necessary survival skills. They also carry out many propaganda campaigns, raising public awareness of the importance of preparing personal first aid kits and making evacuation plans for families. Construction works, especially high-rise buildings and important infrastructure, must comply with strict earthquake-proof standards to minimize damage when disasters occur. Immediately after the earthquake, the authorities quickly assessed the damage and implemented recovery measures. They focused on providing essentials such as food, drinking water, and temporary accommodation to the affected people. Engineers and teams of experts also inspected and repaired damaged structures to ensure safety. Roads and bridges that had collapsed or were severely damaged were quickly restored to restore traffic. For those who lost their homes, the government supported them to resettle and rebuild their homes in safer areas. In addition, measures to prevent epidemics and handle environmental pollution were also promptly implemented to ensure public health. People were provided with psychological support to overcome the pain after the disaster, and training and drills continued to improve their ability to respond in the future. Floods in Russia are one of the most devastating natural disasters, affecting all aspects of life in the affected areas. In particular, the Far East and Siberia are two regions that regularly suffer from major floods, causing thousands of people to lose their homes, lose their crops, and face mounting economic and social hardships. The Russian Far East, with its complex river system, especially the Amur River, one of the largest rivers in the world, regularly experiences major floods. During the rainy season, when rainfall exceeds normal levels, or in the spring when the ice melts rapidly, the Amur River rises and overflows its banks, causing widespread flooding. The raging floodwaters not only destroy homes, but also damage infrastructure such as bridges, roads, power grids, and water supply systems, making life extremely difficult for people. Siberia, with its harsh climate and diverse terrain, is not immune to major floods, especially in areas near the Lena and Ob rivers. These rivers often experience rapid thaws in the spring, causing sudden rises in water levels and flooding throughout the surrounding areas. Villages and towns along the rivers are often cut off by floodwaters, hampering relief efforts and leaving residents to fend for themselves in harsh conditions. Many people have had to move to higher ground to avoid the floods, but they have not been spared the loss of property, livestock, and crops. Floods in Russia are not just a current problem, but a long-term challenge for the government and its citizens. The property damage is enormous, with hundreds of homes washed away, thousands of hectares of farmland submerged, and public infrastructure severely damaged. Economic sectors are disrupted, transportation is paralyzed, and disease outbreaks frequently occur after floods due to environmental pollution and widespread dirty water. People face the risk of losing food and clean drinking water, and health services are overwhelmed. Socially, floods cause great emotional damage to communities. Many families lose loved ones, lose their homes, and live in poverty. Communities are divided, and social bonds are broken as people are forced to evacuate to safer areas. The painful memories of previous floods are still there, making people always live in a state of anxiety and insecurity every time the rainy season comes. The devastating floods of 2012 in Krymsk, Krasnodar region left a deep and painful mark on the hearts of the Russian people. When night fell, no one expected that in just a few short hours, the town of Krymsk would be submerged in water. Unusually heavy rains had caused the rivers in the area to swell, but no one expected the floodwaters to come so quickly and fiercely. Around midnight, water from the surrounding rivers rushed into the town at a terrifying speed, carrying mud, trees, and trash. The floodwaters rose, sweeping away everything in their path. Houses, cars, and all valuables were swept away in the blink of an eye. The panicked people of Krymsk did not have time to clean up much, but could only run to higher floors or climb onto rooftops to avoid the raging water. Flashlights flickered, cries for help echoed through the night, and chaos engulfed the town. Many people were unable to escape, swept away in the darkness. Roads turned into raging rivers. Vehicles were submerged and left floating on the water. When the floodwaters receded, Krymsk was left a scene of devastation and grief. More than 170 people died in the disaster. Many families lost loved ones, and hundreds of homes were completely destroyed. The people of Krymsk faced an irreparable loss, and the town became a symbol of grief and resilience in the face of natural disasters. The incident shocked Russia and sparked debate about the need for early warning systems and better disaster prevention measures in the future. Floods are not just a localized disaster, but a regular and persistent problem for many regions of Russia, especially in the Far East. Here, summer floods are a part of life. When heavy rains combine with melting glaciers from the mountains to cause rivers to swell and overflow their banks. Giant rivers such as the Amur, already known for their powerful currents, become more ferocious than ever, carrying huge volumes of water, submerging everything in their path. People in the affected areas often face dire situations. Thousands of people are forced to leave their homes and evacuate to safer areas. However, not everyone can move in time, and many families see their possessions swept away in the raging floods. Traditional wooden houses, which are not strong enough to withstand the force of the water, are easily destroyed. Both crops and infrastructure, such as roads and bridges, were severely damaged, disrupting the lives and economic activities of the region. Floods not only cause physical damage, but also leave deep mental scars for people. Every flood season, people face the fear of losing their homes, losing their livelihoods, and the risk of having to start over. Food insecurity, the risk of disease after floods, and a sense of helplessness in the face of nature all paint a bleak picture of life for people in the Russian Far East. These harsh experiences have fostered a spirit of resilience, but at the same time, they have posed major policy challenges for the Russian government in protecting and supporting people in flood-affected areas. Floods in Russia are not just a current problem, but a systemic challenge that requires a long-term and resolute response from both the government and the people. The damage caused by the floods is extensive and varied, with hundreds of homes swept away by the raging floodwaters, leaving many families without shelter and their life savings. Not only that, thousands of hectares of fertile agricultural land, which people depend on to grow crops and feed their families, are also submerged in floodwaters, leading to the risk of crop failure and food crisis. Public infrastructure, such as roads, bridges, and electricity and water systems, are severely damaged, making daily life more difficult than ever. Transport is paralyzed. Main and secondary roads are flooded or collapsed, disrupting the movement and supply of essential goods and necessities to isolated areas. Meanwhile, economic zones were completely stagnant. Production and business activities had to be suspended, causing serious economic damage to the entire region. In response to the increasing number of floods and the ever-escalating damage, the Russian government has taken a series of measures to improve forecasting, early warning, and emergency preparedness. Meteorological agencies have been equipped with modern equipment to monitor and forecast weather conditions, giving local authorities and residents time to prepare before floods occur. Improved early warning systems ensure that information reaches those at risk in a timely manner, allowing them to evacuate and protect their property before floodwaters arrive. In addition, the government has invested in the construction and upgrading of dikes, reservoirs, and drainage systems in flood-prone areas. These structures not only help control the flow of major rivers, but also prevent erosion and protect land from prolonged inundation. In particular, new dams and reservoirs are designed to regulate the flow of water from major rivers such as the Amur, Lena, and Ob, reducing the risk of spring floods when the ice melts. However, implementing these measures remains challenging due to the complex terrain, uneven population distribution, and unpredictable changes in the global climate. The floods in Russia, with all their devastating effects, are a stark reminder of the need for more effective and sustainable disaster prevention measures. Only through close coordination between governments, communities, and international organizations can damage be minimized and lives protected from increasingly severe natural disasters.